long work hours, a lot of shouting, and a lot of soju would summarize my work experience here in Korea. But I'm going to tell you why I prefer it. Hello everybody! Today I am here at the Central Komarine Park in Incheon, a safe travel destination to destination myself away from my hectic work schedule here in Korea to confirm or maybe dispel some of the myths that you hear about working culture here in Korea. So I think Korea gets a bad rep. And I think a lot of the misconceptions here come from the fact that a lot of YouTubers out there, including myself, when they first come to Asia, are nothing but little pawns in the game. They're English teachers. And they come out here with this idea and fantasies from watching Korean dramas or what have you, that their opinion's gonna matter as an English teacher. You know, they soon find out they're nothing but just cheap sort of manual labor. You know, Korea needs a lot of English teachers. Every kid needs to get English taught in these little academies, and small little mom and pop businesses shoot up teaching English. They don't have much management experience or corporate structure or any kind of work culture or whatnot, and they're just making money, you know, hiring them foreign teachers to teach children just little bits of English. And that's probably where the biggest misconception is as far as work culture in Korea. These English teachers complaining on YouTube about their work experience in Korea, which, you know, honestly isn't really work experience in the normal sense. Now, that being said, what's gonna make it different about what I'm gonna experience and say is that a lot of the stuff that I'm gonna tell you about work culture in Korea is gonna be based on me, myself, working with people out here, making videos, etc. for professional services, my conversations with people who work in the service industry, and also just the fact that I'm not a fresh college grad with absolutely no basis of understanding how work culture actually is. So I have no misconception or fantasies about how work is supposed to be. But, you know, I am a lot older than I look, so, you know, take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, because the last time I worked in the States was 7 years ago, and I understand work culture has changed quite a bit. So understand that that's what I'm basing myself out of. But whatever the case, 안녕하세요. But whatever the case, I wanted to talk to you guys about what I think might be a lot of misunderstanding and misconception about Korean work culture that's been spread through YouTube based on people teaching English, and correct a little bit of that. And why I've decided, you know, one of the main reasons I want to stay in Korea is because I really like the work culture here. So you guys are probably wondering, how can I justify working long hours as something that I like about the work culture in Korea? I totally get it. Let me explain. So yeah, I'm gonna admit it. I'm a workaholic, guys. I mean, you might not consider what I do as work because I'm just having so much fun doing it. But yes, it is work. I have to put in long hours, travel long distances, live out of a suitcase, you know, edit until 3, 4, 5 a.m. if I need to. And the reason I do all of that is because as a YouTuber, there's a lot I want to show you about Asia, and I just really don't have the time to make these videos. I have so many ideas, but I can't. I have so many people that want to work with me, but I can't do it. So I'm literally, of my own free will, given my time to do it. Now, in America, it becomes like pretty much illegal to work long hours. And they want to make it like a very same playground socialist kind of situation where you're only limited to working 40 hours. But as someone that's just like sort of starting out in the industry, wants to learn a lot of things, I personally think you need to put a lot of hours in the beginning stages. That's how you improve and you get to that point where you could demand a lot more, get more interesting jobs, etc. In Korea, the sheep get separated from the super sheep. I don't even know what I'm saying. But if you're lazy and you don't want to put in the long hours and you're not dedicated, then you're going to get found out. And I think that's what a lot of people have issues with. There are some people out there that feel like they don't have to put in the long hours. They don't have to put in the effort, but they should be heard. And they should be given raises regardless of whether or not they're performing at a higher rate than others. You know? I want to make it clear, nobody forces anybody here in Korea to work long hours. You could quit, worst case scenario. But in most cases, they say, work long hours, you know, if you want to prove yourself. And people like to get these jobs, like at Samsung or wherever, that requires a lot of overtime and long hours because they find that job prestigious and they want to be promoted within that company. And that's the way they show effort. I mean, if you want to, you could just work at a convenience store here or flip burgers at Burger King. It's not like you get crap wages, you know? One of my cousins actually does it. He makes a pretty decent living flipping burgers, you know? There's no shame in that. Some people just like a very simple life, you know, structured, 9 to 5. But some people are motivated. They want the crazy jobs with the crazy responsibilities, interesting things happening every day, challenges. And the way you should be able to prove that you could do it is by putting in the long work hours when needed so you can improve yourself. And that's probably why Korea is very competitive, because you're going to get found out if you don't put in the effort. All right, let me just explain something a little bit more too. In America, the status quo is you're usually also not on a salary. Most jobs in America, you're a little rat or a little robot that just does the same things. Thank Mr. Ford for that. Brilliant man, created the assembly line, and Americans are very good at standardizing tasks and making you do things that you're replaceable for. So they put you on an hourly wage, and when they do, and they pay you crap wages, then you should be replaceable. I mean, you are. Show up for work late 3 times, you know, you get a warning, second warning, and get fired. A lot of the jobs out here in Korea, like the ones that people complain about with long hours, aren't hourly jobs. You know, your average office worker eventually gets contracted. So it becomes very hard to fire them. So it doesn't matter if this person is maybe not performing at the rate that the boss wants them to, you know. Maybe they're not motivated. So I've heard the way that they sort of punish them is they give them a lot of tasks and make them, you know, work overtime. It's either that or, you know, they just get found out, you know. So in some ways, I guess it is sort of an understanding way to help them improve, you know. I mean, if they really, really don't want it, they really can't handle the job, and that's a way they're saying maybe you should quit if you're not strong enough. You know what I'm saying? But they can't just like simply fire you because you're contracted. So then they give you like a lot of tasks and they're like, well, you sucked at the last one, you screwed up, so you do all this. You know, it is a bit draconian, but it's just the way it is. And there's some people that might prefer that over just being fired, you know? I mean, doesn't completely excuse it if you're the kind of person that doesn't want to work, you know, long hours. Totally get it. And this is why I'm saying it isn't good or bad. I don't really think anything is good or bad. I just prefer it this way because I guess it might be the Korean in me that makes me super competitive. And I don't want anything off limits in the way that I can show that I am more dedicated and that I'm far more interested in helping, you know, that my company or in doing my job and, you know, giving a better end result, right? If I was limited because it's such taboo to work overtime, which was the case in America, because trust me, when I was a loan officer, there was so much work, you know, there's no way I could accomplish it unless I was processing loans until 2, 3 a.m. But then my manager would be like, you know, I can't have you work overtime, you know? I'm like, but this work needs to be done. And he wouldn't let me work overtime, you know? So I would just have to, you know, accept a lower performance when I could compensate for it and, you know, really make myself stand out with overtime. And eventually, you know what I did? I worked overtime and not even got paid, you know? So I ended up getting crazy results, and that's probably why I got promoted so fast in the bank. And I don't know, there's probably other people that do that too in America. But here, at least, you could show that you're doing overtime and definitely set yourself apart from everybody else that just wants to half-ass their jobs and collect a paycheck and go home. Because honestly, I personally don't believe that those are the kinds of people that should be promoted or be leading a company, you know? So is this a very toxic work culture? Possible, but this is where differences of opinion come. And there's a big difference, I think, in just the way that Americans and Koreans approach work. And I would say, if I had to summarize it, Koreans are more results orientated, whereas in America, results do matter. But there is a bigger stress on how you get there. So they're far more process orientated. Let me explain in another area. And actually, before I talk about this next segment, you know, I'm gonna give you a disclosure. If you watch my channel, you sort of know that I'm not an absolutist, but a lot of Americans are like absolutists. And what I mean by that is, when I say it's this, it's like, it's absolutely this. It's not. Everything is sort of like a moving scale, you know? And particularly in this case, when I say like, Korea is more interested in results, don't interpret that as they're only interested in results. Because through the ages, they become far more interested in the process. But that scale has also been moving up in America through the years, you know, even though they were interested in results, and I think Americans are far more interested in results than maybe some other Western country, they have been far more interested in the process over the years. So it's just that Koreans are less interested in the process and more interested in the results. So maybe now it's sort of like how America was 7 years ago in Korea. Hope that makes sense. But what is like process orientated? How do I say it? Like, work in America is, in some ways it's simple. Like, they give you like a code of conduct and ethics and blah, 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 and you can make the stupidest mistake ever. But if you could justify that you did that because, you know, something in the code of conduct or whatever, you're just really following it blindly and that's why you did it, you're forgiven and sometimes even awarded, you know? So, for example, like, I can't think of too many examples right now on top of my head, but one sticks out. I was working for retail, and there was a situation where somebody came with like a fake check, and I completely screwed it up. She said, call this number and then like, verify it or whatever. And since I'm calling from the retail store, and I didn't realize that I was like basically authorizing a fake check to go through. I ended up like costing my company, it wasn't that much, a couple $100. But back then it was a lot for me because, I was just only like 17 working a retail job, and I was getting paid like $400 for 2 weeks. So it was like 2 weeks of wages, and they were freaking the heck out. But then I was actually awarded for that situation because I was providing customer service, which is sort of in their code of conduct. It's like you blindly go above and beyond to provide customer service to a customer. And when that happens in America, the bosses will realize, okay, we made a mistake. We need to have explained to him that in certain situations, you need to be a little bit more cautious because there's fraud. But because I was just blindly trying to provide customer service, that worked out. That kind of stuff would not work in Korea because they care far more about the results. It's like, we don't care that, they do care, but it's like, at the end of the day, the most important thing is you cost us a shit ton of money, and you would have probably been fired if you weren't contracted, right? It's like, man, you're just sort of retarded, Maybe that isn't the best example because I was only like 16, 17 years old, and loss prevention should have done a better job of telling us that that's what happens, blah, blah, blah. But whatever the case, here in Korea, being results oriented means that you have to take responsibility for your actions. And a lot of people, honestly, especially Americans, we don't have common sense, We're actually encouraged not to use common sense or to think in our work. And that is the assembly line concept, right? They just give you simple tasks because the more you think, the more you're just gonna complicate things. So we dumb down our chores and tasks and we reward them for just blindly being a robot in the system. And it's brilliant in some ways. I'm not gonna say that system is ineffective because it is effective and efficient to some degree. I think American workers are like some of the nicest workers to employers because they're just so dedicated, they're so passionate about doing such boring tasks, right? And that's part of the thing. There's pros and cons to each of these systems. But in Korea, it's much harder to train an employee because you are literally expected to read your employer's mind. And this is such a big cultural difference in America that a lot of people can't handle it. There's so many ways that this sort of materializes and impacts your experience out here in Korea. Let me go to another location and explain, because the sun is so bright today and is reflecting off this bright surface here that I'm gonna get more sunburnt than I already am. So honestly, I think this is the hardest part of Americans adapting to work culture in Korea, and it's not even the long hours, because the long hours you could just physically pull it off, and it's not like all jobs in America, have perfect work-life balances. Just look at how much doctors work, etc. Like big-time CEOs, working long hours and hard. It's actually somewhat of an American trait, I would say. It's just very taboo in a lot of situations because you're just a robot that's supposed to do the right amount of work for the right amount of hours so that your employer doesn't have to pay overtime based on the federal requirements, right? But being results oriented means that you're going to be pretty much responsible for every action that you do here in Korea, because it doesn't matter, you can't just give excuses. Well, I did this because, this or blah, blah, blah. If you don't deliver the results, your boss is going to be yelling at you, That's why there's going to be a lot of shouting in Korea, you know, like Koreans are very passionate, contrary to, you know, maybe the stereotype that you might have of Asians, because I think the most stereotypical Asian culture is Japanese, and Japanese is, in a sense, the least stereotypical or general or typical culture out of all the Asians. Like, every Asian like society I know, other than the Japanese, are super emotional, you know? And when it comes to money and work, something they're passionate about, they're gonna be yelling, you know? So you're gonna get yelled at, and you just, because you screwed up, you just didn't deliver the results. And you sit there and you sit and start making excuses like, well, you know, this, well, you know, that. I mean, they honestly don't care. As a matter of fact, it goes so extreme in the work culture here in Korea that I've experienced that bosses don't even want you to report what you're doing. They just want you to deliver the results, and they don't even want to explain how to do it. like what? There's so many situations here where I'm given a job, or like, not just for my YouTube. My YouTube, of course, I'm expected to do it, but like when I'm working for, you know, other people, and I'm the videographer, I'm expecting the director to tell me, like, give me directions on how to shoot it, you know, blah, blah, blah. They don't. It's just expect you to read their mind, sort of. And then, like, you know, of course there is guidance. There's a lot of guidance. And in their defense, they try. But they're just so busy, they don't have the time to do it, you know? So you are gonna get analyzed based on the results. You know, there's like so many situations where it's gonna be a first time for you, and they're gonna just expect you to do it without them teaching you because they don't have the time, you know? Most likely, they'll just like let you shadow them, and you gotta sit there and listen and observe, which is very, very hard for an American because we like to talk and communicate things directly. You know, when I go and get hired by a company, before I do any kind of job, I expect to go through an employment training program. You know what I'm saying? Like here, there's none of that. It's like, you're part of this team, just like, now get to work. You know, it's just like, that's sort of like a culture shock. And then you have to just sort of observe and see what other people do, and you gotta be a better listener than a like a talker. You can't, like, you know, expect them, like, go up to them and say, hey, could you tell me how to do this and this and this? And because you communicated that directly and you expect them to communicate back to you, no, they're just gonna sort of go, why are you asking me stupid questions, you know? Just look and figure it out. Everybody else did it that way, you know? And then people will sit there and go on YouTube and complain, oh, you know, Koreans just don't know how to communicate, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, it's just you don't know how to listen, and you don't have the freaking common sense and the IQ to figure out what everybody else can figure out without actually having to directly communicate it to you, you know? So, yeah, it's a bit difficult, not gonna lie, but it definitely helps me grow interpersonally. And, you know, in real life, even in America, at the end of the day, even though we don't officially say it, we don't like people who ask stupid questions, you know? But ever since we're little children, it's like, your teacher's like, oh, no question is a dumb question. So we're actually encouraged and awarded for asking stupid, retarded questions sometimes, you know? When you should just go and do it. And it's really funny because I've just gotten, I know a lot of these managers of these programs, and oh my gosh, it is such a cultural difference because they have to deal with Western influencers, and Western influencers, we tend to ask the stupidest question because we actually feel obligated to do it. We feel like if I don't ask this question, somebody else might have that question, which is true in a sense, but it's like different here. It's you shouldn't ask the question and just figure it out for yourself. So, and just get yelled at if you make a mistake. That's the culture here. I mean, Americans are so afraid of being yelled at, of saying you screwed up, that they want to unnecessarily take so much time, taking up your boss's time and the time of people who are more important, so that you could get the satisfaction of knowing how to exactly do your job, so that after you do it, you could get that big pat on your back. When, you know what, it might just be more efficient if you did it to the best of your attempt, and then the boss can sort of see, oh, how much common sense do you have? So I could know in the future what I could sort of trust you to do on your own without explaining, and obviously yell at you and correct you for all the mistakes so you don't repeat that mistake. I mean, accomplish is the same thing. In some ways, it might be more efficient in improving you in a faster rate. Because I couldn't tell you how many stupid training programs and certifications and regulation D, C, B, whatever classes I have to sit through and take, where I think, oh my gosh, you know, like I'm a grown adult and you're treating me like a freaking third grader just because some of my other coworkers are stupid and third graders. You have to bring me down to their level and put me through this stupid training which I can figure out on my own. So there's none of that in Korea. I mean, again, it sort of goes with the first thing. There's many ways you can prove yourself, including also using common sense, which in America you're not really encouraged to do. All right, let me move because the shadow is a little weird here. Am I even getting focused? I don't know. Let's see. All right. Now, I get it. If you summarize everything I've been sort of saying, you can summarize that I like Korean work culture because it sort of sets the sheep apart from the super sheep. And I like it because, you know, someone as competitive as me is going to excel in this society, and it's not an even playing ground compared with all the other lazy people who just want to play politics and, you know, talk behind your back and crap and get promoted from unrelated performance-related activities. But there are other pros. Pros such as, you know, all the eating out and parties, because it's not like Koreans are robots, guys. I told you, they're very emotional. So you make them work hard, you better reward them. And Korea is truly, in a sense, the work hard, play hard type of culture out here. If you work hard and you get a project through the line, you best expect, doesn't matter if it's Christmas or whatever, your boss is gonna take you out and treat you to unlimited soju and drinks, you know, that evening. Because, you know, he needed extra help. He made you do overtime. He's gonna buy you lunch, you know? Now, this is something that could seriously be a preference thing. To me, the reason why this works out is, I guess, maybe I am Korean in a sense, but it's not just me, because I know a lot of foreigners who love this culture, but they love to drink and have delicious food and enjoy like nice hotels, you know, accommodations or whatever. Hope you also enjoy Starbucks too, because Koreans like love to reward you in Starbucks gift cards, which I don't. But whatever the case, you get rewarded a lot because you can't just make your employees work without any kind of compensation. And this might only work if you like drinking. But if you don't like drinking, yeah, then it sort of sucks. It's like they make you work hard, plus they're going out on these outings that you don't like to go out on. So it's like, what the heck, you know? But yeah, I totally get it if that's your type. And actually, Korea isn't like that anymore. Like a lot of companies have made policies to basically ban, like Samsung bans like after work hour kinds of outings and stuff, because they just want to, you know, give their employees free time to do whatever they want on your own. But me personally, Sort of, because I'm a freelancer, I could choose to do whatever. So if I'm, like the other day I was working with a hospital, and I was getting really annoyed with the project because I felt like I was being completely underpaid, and they're just demanding so much from the city and stuff, and I was just like, ah. So then, you know what they do? You know, they personally came out and bought me delicious lunch, and you know, she made sure that I got like a really nice hotel room to stay at so I could, you know, film for 2 days, and just so much food. Like I had delicious sushi, etc. That the money they spent on all that was probably more than what I actually ended up getting paid. But I didn't mind, because even if I had made that money, these are all things I would have spent money on my own to enjoy. But you know what? I get to enjoy it with the people that I work with, you know, which sounds weird, but I enjoy my, I enjoy my coworkers and the people that I work with. That's, you know, that's how I get friendly with them, etc., and that's how I network. I don't have to use my own money to do it. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, this is something that's going to be a bit different about Korean work culture. We're always doing this networking. We're always drinking a lot of soju and stuff. And, you know, even though they're officially trying to switch away from this culture, I could tell you my ability to drink a lot of soju and enjoy it and have fun and crack jokes, it's done a lot for making connections, you know. Nobody even knows my golf game out here. I'm actually not that bad. I'm pretty decent. But the way you network out here is with soju. And if you like drinking, you're gonna go places. Yeah, so I'm just gonna have to wrap it up here, although there's so much more about my experiences in Korea that I want to talk about as far as working, because this is just getting very long. But yeah, to summarize, you're gonna work long hours, but you're gonna be compensated by getting the recognition that you're due for putting your dedication in, and with plenty of delicious food, soju, whatever, you know, instead of overtime pay. I mean, in the same sense, I mean, it's compensation, but it's like, how do you want to be compensated? Do you want to be promoted and be given soju, or you just want to get the time and a half and go home early? I mean, I totally get it. It's like, it's different groups for different whatever. I'm really not working. Anyways, whatever the case, look at this place, guys. I hope you enjoyed this little park, the Central Park here in Incheon. We work hard, so Korea does a lot to create these beautiful parks everywhere in the middle of the city. It's a safe travel destination, but it's sort of funny saying it's a safe travel destination when it's your neighborhood park. But it really is. I didn't even see all of it. It's just like half of it. It's fantastic. Do you have a park like this in America? No, because you don't deserve it. You don't work hard enough. All right, guys. But whatever the case, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys again next week for more vlogs about living and traveling in Asia. Bye-bye. 이거 조정할 수 있는 거야? 아니면 그냥 바람 타고 가는 거예요? 조정할 수 있어요. 조정하고 있는 거예요?